He told me that his favorite Christmas tradition is making gingerbread houses. It's pretty cute. Ryan's favorite Christmas treat is crisp gingerbread. He makes it each year from a recipe he read. This year, he's creating a gingerbread replication. Every detail perfect to the last coloration of the English department here at UNLV. He has a Christine, a Brett, a you, and a me. His figures are festooned with decorative icing. Gumdrop eyes make them very enticing. To make Cookie Ryan, he rolls the dough flat, and in icing, he shapes a white bucket hat.
All right, how are you doing, guys? Sorry I'm not wearing my hat. I thought I might read for you a few excerpts from a story that I wrote a while back, and it's called Emily Goes to See the Sistine Chapel. It's about a girl named Emily, who knew, and she's on a post-graduation trip to Rome and to other parts of Italy with her boyfriend, and her boyfriend's name is Peter Pan. When the story finds Emily, she's going through a lot, and on top of all this, she wants to break up with Peter Pan. So I'm going to start reading. Emily Maples was falling out of love, not just in the romantic sense, which involved her live-in boyfriend of 3 years, but also in terms of the bigger picture. All was called into question: her intellectual stature, her career plans, the possibility of mature happiness, her delusions, her immaturities, her place, her fate, her soul. And nothing, not even sunning on a gondola in Venice, could stop this rush of uncertainties from stirring new dread towards the future. Her head felt emptier than ever, newly awarded with a bachelor's degree in English and film studies. She had her diploma professionally framed in mahogany. Emily was so impressed with the work that she referred all of her friends. But then she thought that the person who did the framing possessed more skills than she did, despite the fact that she'd gone to college. Which begged the question, what could she do? Most of her friends had jobs lined up in the fall or were already working. Some were excitedly awaiting grad school. Her best friend, Jen, was going to med school. A few in her circle of English friends had managed to get news writing or editing jobs, but Emily disliked journalism and scorned most magazines. It seemed that while other people gained skills and specialized knowledge, liberal artists emerged from the college tunnel clear-headed or otherwise sarcastically enlightened on how hopelessly fractured life was. And adding insult to injury, no one would hire you, unless you wanted to teach, but children infuriated her. However, Emily could imagine herself half-heartedly instructing college students, so she half-heartedly enrolled in the master's program in English. Up until recently, she had been confident of her future as a professor, but now she couldn't say. And those past 4 years of reading and digesting and contriving pages, activities once regarded as thick and nutritious, now obstinately trailed her like a remiss dark space. Thus, the postmodern condition might be ignorance is bliss. Her suffering was not even unique. Of course, from strange, abstract suffering came great literature: Lolita, Gravity's Rainbow, the Gulag Archipelago, Proust. Instead, her situation more echoed those bad chick flicks or hollow rom-coms, the kind where the sincere but misguided heroine is doubtful about some guy, and simultaneously her life fulfillment gauge is beeping. The root of both problems being, of course, that she is insecure on a fundamental level. Pretty Woman, The Notebook, Sex and the City 1 and 2, The Misadventures of Emily Maples. Her suffering was not artistic, but Philistine. There were no insights to be mined. The postmodern condition, PC, had been a topic of frequent discussion and of dwindling amusement for Emily and her boyfriend, Peter, full name Peter Pan. His parents had never heard of the little green child abductor when they settled in Newark from Shanghai. It happened that everyone called him by his full name, at first with incredulous amusement, and then gradually, normatively. Now I want to read something from the middle, and this is when they actually get to the Sistine Chapel. The line to the Sistine Chapel the next day was, as expected, unbelievable. The arteries of the Apostolic Palace were clogged with working natives, the hooded monks and collared priests and bead-clutching nuns, amongst Americans like themselves, their odious children, the camera-slung Japanese. And all around them were the gaudy side offerings, thin-legged tables groaned of things, T-shirts, hoodies, visors, all of which looked to be from the early 90s when they would have sold and never did. Sunglasses, bracelets and bangles, and earrings with the stained glass Madonna, more T-shirts, tie-dye and sparkles of subtle variations on a spiritual theme. In line, they were preceded by 3 American teenagers, 2 boys and a girl, one wearing douchebag sunglasses, white, rectangular, and the girl saying how a Facebook update from here would cost $5, but she was going to do it anyways. They advanced like cattle, bored and hot. While waiting, Peter kissed her on the cheek, which startled her because Peter didn't kiss her in public. "I love you, you know, I really do," he said, smiling at her. Emily asked if he was okay. "Just look around," Peter said. "All this stuff, all these old buildings and built without any modern tools. And I can't even get a picture to hang straight without that fucking laser thing." Peter pointed out the seminary adjacent to them and the gargoyles etched into the architrave. They looked grotesque to her, horned and scowling. Emily had nearly executed her escape to the gift shop to cool off when the line leaped ahead, like a clot released, and they beheld the chapel's mouth, where their 12-euro weekend tickets would be eaten for 10 minutes in the second holiest site in the Catholic world. First thought, much smaller than expected. They were pushed single file into a narrow foyer-like area before the main chapel. But as far as the painting, you could only focus on the ones on the wall, and even those were several feet up. To study closely Michelangelo's iconic frescoes on the ceiling seemed as impossible a task as scrutinizing heaven itself, which was the Pope's vision for the ceiling. The Japanese tourists oohed and ahed, binoculars up. People were taking flash photographs, flaunting the stern placards. And while the green blazers thwarted people at the edges, they couldn't stop transgressors in the middle of the herd, zooming in and flashing the sacred ceiling in white-hot bursts. People were chewing gum, and the concentrated smacking was incredible. Small children infiltrated the security ropes and prodded at the flaking wall. Yet Peter seemed to ignore all of this. Head lifted serenely and eyes peeled, his whole body turned slowly like microwaving food. Then a green-jacketed woman glanced up at her stopwatch and began waving people out of the Sistine Chapel. They had only just arrived. "Grazie, grazie per essere venuto." Thank you for coming. Grazie, grazie mille. Leaving the Apostolic Palace via St. Peter's Square, Emily was told it was a long walk to the Colosseum, the next place on their hit list. The sun beating down and her heels grinding on the uneven flagstone, Emily felt her ennui amplified. She just wanted to sit. She just wanted to stop. There was a gelato shop. Feebly, she imagined a poem which dealt with the futility of walking towards the sun. This comes later that evening when, on their last evening in Rome, they're enjoying a nice dinner near the Fountain of Love. And the Fountain of Love is where all those scenes in those cliche rom-coms happen, where you take a coin and you flip it behind you. And if it lands, you might get your wish or not. But when they get there, they're eating, but the Fountain of Love is out of order for the time being. So they're having dinner, but that's when these 2 sleazy Italian guys come and start hitting on Emily and really harassing the 2 of them. There's a guy in a black jacket and a brown jacket, and Emily tells them to go away, but they don't go away. "Listen," Emily said, "you guys have been very rude to me and my boyfriend, and we've been very patient with you. You see, we've been walking all day and we're very tired. Now will you please leave and just let us have our dinner?" "Listen, Bella Emilia, Black Jacket put his hands together. I am so terribly sorry that I have insulted your little boyfriend. But this is scientific fact. Chinaman has small penis. I was reading in a magazine, it's true. Brown Jacket, his companion, crumpled in laughter. Emilia, how would you like to go ride in my motorcycle? Myself, and this is my friend Lino, we are going to the Piazza Navona. Have you been? Ah? It is so beautiful at night. And of course, I promise to bring you home safely whenever you want. I swear on my dead mother's grave. He touched his chest. Her name Luciana Maria Messina. You see, I just want to give you a chance to get away from this joker for one time. Because he did not love you, Emilia. Look at him. He loves the steak more than he loves you. Peter was chewing. He cut another piece, looking at nothing except his plate. Black Jacket said, he will not defend you in this important time, you see. But well, I cannot very blame him because of his pinecone penis and balls the size of... The glass toothpick holder, shaped like a sitting hen, shattered upon Brown Jacket's face instead of its intended target. Peter was already outside the gold roping of the restaurant when Brown fell to the ground. Peter ducked Black's first punch. Then they traded punches. People gasped. Emily stood watching with her fork still in her hand. Brown stumbled to his feet, his nose bleeding fast. Emily cried out. That's when Peter was struck. He fell down and both men started kicking him like a ball. Peter was curled up like a fetus. Suddenly, another man in white knocked Black to the ground and headbutted Brown. It was their waiter. But why? He shouted quickly in Italian as he tossed his white waist apron. Maybe it was 2 versus 1 is not fair. Black peeled Brown off the flagstone and steadied him. They threw their jackets off to their white tank tops, bearing an encyclopedia of tattoos between them. Both had short dark hair cropped to the front and slicked back with gel, a la the Jersey Shore. People were gathering around, names were called, and wives and brothers made their way to the small squarish inlet by the inactive Fountain of Love. Soon tourists also joined the cluster. People started shouting out, more incitingly than rebukingly. The short, scrawnier one, Brown, spat on the ground. His face was messed up with blood. The waiter turned to Peter and extended his hand. They shook, and he said his name, Giulio. By now, seemingly out of nowhere, a 2-ply ring of spectators had materialized. Emily was standing close to Peter, and several men were motioning for her to get out of the way, let them fight. Finally, an old man tugged her by the wrist. More shouting. Black squared himself in front of the waiter and Peter on Brown. Then Peter threw the first punch, which landed on Brown's shoulder, triumphant cheering, the cheerful flick of cigarettes. Emily could not believe it. What the fuck was going on? What were they even fighting about? Why wasn't anyone trying to break it up? But then the fact descended upon her. It was for her, all of this. They were fighting for her sake, for her honor, the honor of Emily Maples. Giulio, their waiter, had Black on the ground and was punching him. Meanwhile, Peter and Brown grappled in a more wrestling way, trying to knock each other down. Compared to the fight beside them, theirs looked like a little game. She almost laughed a little. Somehow, the presence of the others, particularly of the 3 or 4 schoolboys watching in front of their smoking fathers, comforted Emily. Surely, men would step in if things got too out of hand. Peter kneed Brown in the stomach, then followed with a punch to the center of Brown's bloody face. He fell limp to the ground. Peter straightened, nose bleeding, eyes narrowed. He was looking straight back at her. Someone cried out. The chihuahua at her feet barked. "This is what you want," a voice within her stirred. Was this what she wanted after all? Was this Peter's way of answering her yearning, her own shortcomings, her own stupid wishes? A boy leaped up and down and yelled excitedly, pointing at Peter. There was her man, her lover, her foot massager, her reading buddy, her explainer of difficult literary theory, and now her protector, her gallant, her towering pillar of testosterone, her tough guy, her Vassar knight, because there was actually a petition at the school to change their mascot from Brewer to Knight. Both of them graduated from Vassar. Clad in slim Gap khakis and the red plaid shirt with the buttoned detachable gray hood, the one she liked. There was a terrible crunch. Black, from behind, smacked Peter flat to the ground. Emily rushed to Peter. Black was punching the waiter while Brown held him, but Julio fought back, landing a meaty kick on Black's face, and got free of Brown. Sirens. The men tossed their cigarettes and the spectatorial donuts scattered except for the American tourists who remained sheepishly. A few were clapping. The leather jackets that had started to fight were gone. Peter wrinkled his nose and his closed eyes fluttered. "Excuse me, I'm a doctor." A thin hand with an emerald ring laid itself on Peter's forehead. "Elevate his head, there. Is he okay?" "Oh, I'm sure, honey, but let me check him for trauma anyways." She was a trim lady in a teal dress, roughly her mother's age. "Thank you," Emily said. Peter coughed and touched his neck. "The doctor said, I'm jealous of you, you know. No one's ever gotten knocked out for my sake. That's my husband over there." She pointed to a filled-out seersucker jacket, maneuvering pasta onto his fork and clutching a breadstick in his left. Peter looked around, straining. "What happened? Where'd they go? Is Julio all right?" "Yeah, he's fine," said Emily. The waiter sat nearby, a bag of ice pressed to his cheek. He raised a hand. "Hi, I'm Trish. I'm a physician." The doctor said to Peter. "Now, I'm sure a tough guy like you can take a few punches and walk away, but since I'm here, let me do a quick check for trauma. Look here, look there. Follow the finger. Good. Thanks a lot, guys."